Hey, welcome to Mike's Trains and thanks for joining me for another video. In this video here, we built this. In the last video we built this, right? I showed you how I got all started on this and how everything got going. Now what I want to do is I want to paint this building. So I also want to point out a couple other things real quick. Because we're doing multiple floors in these buildings, the lower floor being separated from the upper floor, and this one actually has 3 floors, we have to do some prep ahead of time, and I'm not going to do it on camera. I'm going to do it later, but I'm just going to tell you what I'm doing. Is I have to go in at some point in this in the process here before I start doing the interiors, and I have to determine where the wires are going to exit the building and wherever that's going to be most helpful to me and easiest to get to. So that's going to end up being probably looking at the layout of the windows here that are in here and the insides of the building. What I'm probably going to end up doing is drilling a hole, probably right about in here somewhere in this little area. And not only do I have to drill the hole in the floor of this building, but I have to drill a hole through here. So what will end up happening is I'm gonna line this up exactly where it needs to be, and then I'm gonna probably throw a clamp on this and then drill the hole straight through both pieces, through the building, through here. So when I go mount this part on the layout, the hole is already where it needs to be, and I can just drill the rest of the way through the plywood in my layout, and that'll be the outlet for all the wiring that's going to go on through the building. And I have to do the same in both buildings here. And in this building, the hole is going to go probably right around right here in this general area here, and again mounted on the sidewalk, and then I can drill through both, and then I have the holes for the layout, for the wiring to pass through. But for right now, what I want to do is I want to get this painted, and I'm going to start by painting the interior, and I want to paint the whole interior white. Originally, you can see I painted them black, and a lot of the other buildings, when I don't do the interiors, black is fine. It really doesn't matter, but I'm doing interiors in here, and they already have a good coating of black in there, so I'm just going to do a layer of white over the top of all of that, and that way when I start doing the interiors, such as this one, the interior is much brighter, and I can deal more easily with lighting inside. The lighting will be much brighter and fuller inside the building. So why don't we get started on getting the inside of this painted white. Alright, so here we are in the spray booth, and we have the building here. The white paint I'm going to use, I've been using this for a little while now. I kind of like this. It's Tester's Aztec paint. I'm almost out of it, so I'm going to find something else to use, but this is what I'm going to use. I've already shaken it up. I'm just going to put a few drops into my spray cup, and we're going to start spraying this thing. And I'm just worrying about the inside, and that's it. I'm not going to tape off the outside because we've got to paint that anyway. Alright, so the paint's all gone, and you can see the white, and we're pretty good. I think that's good enough coverage. It's just I want to get rid of all the black that's inside, and we're going to call that done for now. So now I have to let that dry. We want that to get a good solid dry on it, because now is the time Next is the time we need to tape off this building, because I'm going to paint each of these a different shade. So I have to let that dry good, and then we'll come back and we'll start painting the other colors on here. Okay, so the white now has had its chance to dry. I've let it sit for a while. I had other things to do. And I also taped off the whole inside of the building. That way I can spray the outside and not have to worry about covering over the white. Okay, so I'm going to start with, I'm not going to tape off, each of these buildings is going to be a little bit of a different color. So I'm going to start this first building right here. I'm going to start with this one. And I'm going to use this color. I don't really know what color this is. I'll put a link to it under the video. It says dark ran. I don't really know what that means, but it's kind of a tan color. So that's what I'm going to do this first building with, and I'm just going to spray that one. I'm not going to do anything any other taping or anything. So same as before. And away we go. Alright, so that's the first building done. That's the color it's going to be. Now we'll do some work with some weathering on that. Some of it will darken, some of it will lighten. But that's pretty much the first building. And I'm kind of digging it. I think it's going to be okay. So when this dries, we're then going to take this first building, tape it off. I only need to tape the front and the back. And then we want to tape off this inside here and probably this inside here, and that's going to be it. And this wall here and everything else will go the next building color. So let's let this dry up and we'll come back when we're ready to spray this next building. Okay, so now I've taped off this first building that we painted. You can see we've got it all taped up, and then I covered it around the front edge there. And I'm not going to worry about this. We'll control the airbrush so we don't get anything in there. As far as the color goes, I'm trying to keep everything because I know there's going to be touch-up work. Normally, like the other building, I would lighten down the paints and, you know, change their colors just a little bit. But because there's 3 buildings, 3 different colors, and I don't want to be hanging on to remnants of a whole bunch of different paints, I'm going to keep everything pretty much right out of the bottle. So this one is called Rust. It's a little darker than I'd like, but we can lighten that down later. We'll put some of that in here. And it's going to be, you know, a fair big contrast to what we did the first building as, but that's okay. That's kind of what I'm looking for. I don't want these buildings to look like, well, the other block, they're all the same color, and I kind of want to stay away from that as much as possible. Alright, so that's the second building done. Let's see how much of that shows. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Let me bring it around. So now it's time, when this dries, we'll tape off this building and then paint the last one, which is again going to be another color. Okay, so now I've taped off this next building all the way around. And now we're going to spray this building. Now the color I'm using for this, I didn't want to do it, but I will, is I've taken that same rust color, I dumped a bunch of white in there and just lightened it up. And we'll pour that into our cup. And then we'll spray this last building. Alrighty then, so I think that's going to be it for this one. You can see how that kind of came out. It's a bit lighter than the one before it, and you'll notice the difference more when I unwrap all of this. So let me let this dry up, and then we'll come back and take a look at how it came out. Alright, so I've unwrapped the buildings, and this is what we end up with. I think they look pretty good. You can see I have the darker shade here. We went a little bit lighter on this one. Of course, that color there. I did lose a little paint on the top here when I peeled off all the tape, but I don't think overall I'm going to worry too much about it. I lost a little bit in the back here on the higher spots, but these higher spots and this top here are going to get painted a different color anyway. And then I lost a little tiny bit here, and I'm going to leave that. I kind of like it, right? So now I want to do a little base weathering on this. So what I'm going to do for that is first I'm going to fade out the colors. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a couple of drops of white in here. 1, 2, 3. And we'll go one more. So all I'm basically doing is just putting a little blob of paint down in the bottom of the brush. And then I'm going to take 70% alcohol, and I'm going to kind of fill the cup up. So I'm going to take a whole bunch of this alcohol, and I'm just going to run it right down in there. Thing is, I want this really super thin. Alright, I want this really thin to do what we need it to do. We want to fade it, we don't want to paint it. And I'm just going to hold the end and I'm going to mix the paint. Like that. So we have a very thin coat now of white. Now we're going to go over onto the building, and I'm just going to spray down because the fading would happen from the top down. I'm going to come out and I'm just going to hit it like this. And it doesn't look like it's done much, right? But let me take, let me give you a little look as to how that's working. So if you take this and we look onto our, onto the paper here, here's a spot where I painted the red, okay? So if I take this and I run a couple of coats over the red, so you can see by how much that's lightening up the paint, okay? That's what we're doing to the building. We're just fading it down, just cutting down the brightness of the paint. Just a small amount. And I'm also not going into this corner here, but I will hit the top, the front of this building here. So you can see it's kind of a little bit faded. That's all we're looking for. Now I'm going to go clean out my airbrush here, and we're going to move on to the next step. Alright, so we've let that sit for a few minutes. Now I'm going to do the same thing with some black. Now I'm gonna just again with the airbrush, few drops of black, and then some alcohol again. Now this one, doing the black part, you got to be a little more careful because black is a much stronger color. All right. And of course, the less you dilute it, the stronger you make the paint. the more it's going to show up. But we're not looking to actually paint with it. We're just highlighting some things. So what I want to do now is I want to take this and I want to go, so I'm going to start with the air and I'm going to go just a little bit of black right around each window, and then we're going to go up here and then below each window here. And I think that's pretty much it. I think that's where we're going to stop. I don't think there's much else we can get done in there. So now you have this base weathering where we have the shadows below the windows, the chimneys, and everything looks pretty good. I may hit this little center section right here a little bit, like that. And that's it. We're going to call that done. So that's the whole base weathering for this building. The whole building is built. It's got a quick weathering on it. And I think it looks pretty good. So all that being said, that's going to be it for this week. If you haven't subscribed to me and you like what you're seeing, you found it helpful, please, by all means, subscribe to the channel. Love to have you along. Thanks for watching, and until next time, happy modeling.